Hi, this is Kevin Barrett with Safe Road Services, and in this segment we're going to be talking a little bit about application methods and rates, as well as storage and agitation. Like with all of these products, how much you put out and knowing how much you put out is very important. So let's talk about Safe Melt 4060 and its versatility. We'll start off with stockpile treatment. You should be applying the product at the rate of 6 to 8 gallons per ton to your salt or your salt sand stockpile. You can use a pug mill, conveyor, or you can spray and mix right in front of the shed like a lot of people do, lay out a windrow, and then apply 6 to 8 gallons per ton. If you're using straight sand, you want to maybe up that to 8 to 10 gallons per ton. It's important to remember that when you're doing stockpile treating, all salt isn't the same. What you want to make sure that you have when you're doing stockpile treating, you want to make sure that you have a salt supplier who's going to give you salt that's relatively dry and has a relatively few percentage of fines in the delivered product. We've run into situations in the past where we had some good-sized stockpile treating customers get on the phone and say, hey, it's not working. It looks like mush. So the problem was that you had too much moisture and you had too high a percentage of fines, and that will ruin a stockpile treatment application every time. So that's one of the things you have to be aware of. You have to make sure that your salt is of the type and consistency that lends itself to successful stockpile treating. You can also have the same problem with moisture if you're using sand. I do have some customers, believe it or not, all they use is sand in the wintertime. And again, you have to adjust your application rate depending upon the moisture. And in some cases, you may not be able to use it at all. The other thing that I would hammer home is to treat everything that's going to go into that sander and is going to come out onto the road. We got ourselves into a little bit of a problem when we first started out, in that people were treating their salt correctly with the right amount of product, but then they were adding dry sand to it. And you know, the bottom line is they had a better result than if they hadn't treated the salt at all. But you want to get a perfect result. Everything that comes off that spinner should be treated. Another application method is onboard pre-wetting. And again, you want to look at maybe 8 to 10 gallons per ton going onto the spinner. You can put a little bit more because you're not retaining it. It's going to come right off the spinner and land on the road. In most cases, you can use existing equipment with minor alterations. What usually has to be changed out are the nozzles. If you have 80-10 nozzles, you're going to be in good shape. Those numbers are stamped somewhere on the nozzle itself, so you can go and take a look and see what you have. If you don't have 80-10s, if you have something that's not going to work as well, we supply the nozzles, and they're nominal in cost. The other thing that you want to keep in mind when you're doing onboard pre-wetting, a lot of the systems that I see out there have these plastic bowls with a mesh screen in them. You want to take that mesh screen out, because what that's going to do is going to interfere with the product being applied at the spinner. Because this stuff is so viscous, it's going to cause a problem with application. And the other thing that I would recommend, not only for onboard pre-wetting, but also for stockpile treating, is calibrate your sanders. You'd be amazed at the number of people who don't do this. I had a guy out in Central Mass who took over an operation at a town, and they were putting out 3,200 pounds of material per lane mile. It should be around 300 pounds. So just calibrating the sanders alone could be a big plus in terms of reducing the amount of material you're putting out. You add a liquid to it, especially a liquid like Safe Melt, and it's going to make a huge difference in your overall expenditures. Liquid anti-icing is another way to apply the material. Of all the application methods, this is probably the trickiest, whether you're using my liquid or anybody else's, because you're taking the liquid and you're applying it to the pavement directly with the use of a spray bar. And what you have to be careful of, you have to know what the pavement temperature is. It should be 32 degrees before you even think about applying the material. Now that can vary based on your short-term weather forecast, or it depends on the amount of snow that's coming down, the moisture in the snow, and a few other things. But of all of the application methods, this is the one you have to watch out for the most. But if you have a handle on what you're putting out, if you know what the pavement temperature is, this is a method that can really save you a lot of money. And it'll allow you to get out there in advance of a storm and hit areas of your town where you know you're going to have a problem, and it will buy you a significant amount of time, because what it does, what liquid anti-icing does, it prevents hard pack and ice from ever getting started in the first place. So the bottom line is when you drop that plow, you're going to peel it right off. The other thing that you want to keep mind of is you want to track and record your results. If you get in the habit of tracking your results, you will find that liquid anti-icing can be a big plus in your winter arsenal. Next thing we want to talk about is de-icing. De-icing, which is a reactive approach, you can get at the problem by using different types of nozzles. In this case, you want to use driller nozzles, little hose barbs, and what that does, it puts a pencil stream right down on top of, say this is ice right here, and that concentrated stream will bore down through the ice or the hard pack, and once it hits the pavement, it's going to spread out, and you can actually hear that ice or hard pack popping off. It may take you another 45 minutes, but once you drop the plow, you can get rid of it. Another thing that you have to be aware of with these agricultural byproduct blends is that since you have 40% or more of that material is organic, the heavier parts of that organic material are going to layer out and start moving their way toward the bottom of the tank, so you have to do some sort of agitation. We now have a device, and it's a two-part device, basically Schedule 80 PVC with a 2-inch ball valve. Half of it goes inside the tank, and the other half goes on the outside. What this device will do will agitate the contents of, say, a 3,000-gallon tank completely. It will completely turn over the contents of the tank in about 8 minutes, which means that you will never have to worry about sludge buildup or sediment buildup in the bottom of the tank. This mixed jet agitator will take care of that problem very nicely. Another thing that happens with these agricultural blends occasionally will be a foaming problem. And this usually happens when you try to fill a vertical storage tank from the top. What you wind up with is probably 1.5 feet of foam. That problem is solved by loading through the bottom, and 99% of our bulk liquid storage systems that are out in the field are loaded through the bottom. You may occasionally also find a foaming problem in the charging saddle tanks for onboard pre-wetting. An inexpensive way to take care of that problem is to just cut a length of garden hose, and then when you pull that trigger on that gas filler, it'll start filling from the bottom, and as soon as it covers the bottom of the hose, there's no more foaming problem. But this is something that occurs relatively rarely, but we do have fixes for it. And that is it for this particular section. And again, my name is Kevin Barrett, Safe Road Services. I want to thank you very much for listening.